Okay, I don't think I'm going to find those verses on the projector. That's fine. Let me just, I'll read the verses to you. Okay. One of the verses that's mentioned is there are these two conversations that take place between angels and Maryam alayhi salam. I'll tell you the story the way I told it to you yesterday. I think that helps you to have the story in your mind when we look at the verses. So what happens is Maryam she's growing up in the temple. Right? She's been turned over to service at the temple. Zachariah is her guardian there. He's a priest of the temple. He's also, of course, a prophet. At one point, when she grows up, she's past puberty. She's in the temple. Remember, she's in a kind of a secluded place. She's not mingling with all the men who are there in the temple. Rather, she's secluded. The only person who has access to her, who can bring her food, for instance, and so forth, is her uncle Zachariah. One day she's sitting there, and out of the blue, she sees a man in her room, and she's appalled. She's scared, and she doesn't know what to think of it. And she immediately seeks protection with Allah. She prays for Allah's protection, and she warns this person not to come close to her. He disarms her and says, "Don't worry, I'm a messenger from your Lord. I'm an angel, and I've come here to give you a son, right, a pure son." When this happens, she's astonished. And how can this possibly happen? I'm a virgin. One of her names is Azra. Azra means a virgin, the Virgin Mary. She says, no man has ever touched me. Of course, I'm not an unchaste woman. How is this possible? The angel says it's going to happen. It's going to happen just as I've said. You're going to have a son, and Allah, who can create Adam, for instance, out of nothing with no parents, can certainly create your son with just a mother with no father. Right? So this is the good, the glad tidings that are given to Maryam as she's there in her room in this temple. So let's look at the verses and see what we can learn from them. This is in Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verse number 16. وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَرْيَمْ إِذْ انْتَبَذَتْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا مَكَانًا شَرْقِيًّا. Mention in this book the story of Mary, when she withdrew from her family to a place in the east. فَاتَّخَذَتْ مِنْ دُونِهِمْ حِجَابًا فَأَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهَا رُوحَنَا فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. Then she concealed herself from them, whereupon we sent to her our spirit, and he appeared before her as a well-proportioned man. There's a little bit of ambiguity in these verses. I searched a lot and I looked through commentaries, and I found that nobody really knows exactly what this means. She withdrew from her family to a place in the east. Now, there are various guesses that commentators have made. Unfortunately, we find that in some verses, even though there's ambiguity, unfortunately none of the companions of the Prophet or the Imams asked them the question that we have in our minds. And so we didn't get an explanation from them during their lifetime. So we'll have to wait and hold out until our Imam comes back, and then inshallah we'll be able to know. And if not, then hopefully on the other side of death in paradise we'll be able to know these realities. But it's not clear. People have different guesses about what this is, that she withdrew from her family. And first of all, why was she with her family that she had to withdraw from them? The story goes that she's in the temple. She lives in the temple, not with her family or anyone else's family. I mean, there are different, especially the Sunni commentaries, they seem to take a lot from the Jewish sources and Christian sources. But they suggest, for instance, that maybe she when she was of age, she had a menstrual cycle as well, and so she couldn't stay in the masjid, in the temple, during that time. So she'd have to leave, and she'd go to her aunt's house, Elizabeth and Zachariah, and she would stay with them until she was clean, and then she would go back into the temple for her worship. So perhaps she was there in their house, and at that stage, then she kind of pulled aside and went to a separate place and was kind of in a private area where she could worship, or something like that. The place in the east as well, there are different guesses for what that might mean. Some people say it might mean the eastern portion of the temple. Like the old Temple of Solomon, right? The eastern portion, maybe it was faced the sun, and for whatever reason, it might have been a better place for worship or a safer place, and so she had a place over there for herself, where she would kind of focus on worshiping Allah. But in any case, there's ambiguity. We don't know exactly what the verses mean, and unfortunately, that's just the reality of these verses. And she concealed herself from them. Why would she need to conceal herself from her family? From strange men, of course, she would have to conceal herself in the temple, but it's not clear why she would have to conceal herself from her ahl, her family, right? They're her Muharram. But for some reason, she did. She had to do this. When she did this, right? Whatever it was that she did, she attained some level of purity, some level of kind of clarity, spiritual clarity, and at that point she was ready to encounter this angel. So the angel comes to her. Right, whereupon we sent to her our spirit. The spirit, ar-ruh, the ruh that's mentioned in the Quran, ar-ruh has various different meanings. Sometimes the human spirit is called a ruh, right? Ruh also refers to angels. In particular, Gabriel is called ruh, ar-ruh al-amin, or sometimes just ar-ruh. There's also indication in our hadith that ruh indicates some creature who's greater than all the angels. Okay, this expression comes in some of the hadith. The companions would ask the imams, who's the ruh? تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالْرُوحِ. Angels and the spirit descend on the night of Qadr. And they ask, who is this ruh? He's not included in the angels. And they would answer that he's خَلْقٌ أَعْظَمُ مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. He's some sort of creature who's greater than all the angels. So even greater than Gabriel, greater than Michael. We don't know exactly what he is, what kind of creature he may be, but he's greater than all of them, we're told. So again, that's an ambiguity that we have, and these ambiguities that I mentioned, it's not to shake our faith. Ambiguity in basics of the religion would shake our faith. That would be unacceptable. If the basics of our faith, upon which our faith rests, if there are questions that are unanswered and unanswerable, then the whole religion is called into question, and we should honestly throw it out and find something that is solid. But the ambiguities that I'm mentioning are not in the essential aspects of the faith. These are details of the story that we don't understand, kind of almost side notes. And so it's not really that essential that we have the answer. But rather, we should know that there is a source of that answer. There's nothing that contradicts, and there's no internal contradiction in the Quran. And there's nothing that's contradicting our intellectual capacities that says, this is impossible, it couldn't have happened. There's nothing like that. It's simply a question mark. We don't know exactly what it's referring to. And so inshallah we'll be able to refer that to either, maybe a scholar will come along who does have that genius to come up with a clue and realize what it means, or we'll have to wait until the Imam comes back and tells us what it really means. This verse indicates that Maryam a.s. is what we call a muhaddatha.